Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to you. WeatherBrains, episode 1004 is on the air. This is for April 14th, 2025. And if you're new here, this is the magical pre show, an amazing part of the program. Some believe it's the best part, where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say outrageous things. Somebody sent a nasty note about the pre-show the other day. They said, "Hey, man, why don't you just start the show when you start the YouTube live stream? Nobody wants to hear all that malarkey." It was a very snarky comment about the pre-show. So
Somebody
apparently
said
they
that.
don't have a sense of humor. They don't appreciate the outrageous things, the humorous anecdotes. Some people have no sense of humor these days, none. So I'm sorry, but if you're looking for the actual show, just move the slider over about 10 minutes. And most people listen to this. They don't watch, they listen. And so for those that subscribe to the audio podcast, the minute it comes up, it's Bill Curtis and the show opens and it's all pre-produced and pre-packaged. So most people don't even get a chance to experience the pre-show. But I think we've had some amazing moments here. We've had just some outstanding moments here. But maybe I'm just
Don't they know,
happen.
James, that all the high quality production goes on at this part right here? This is when we get
Yeah, no,
we get
this is it.
ready. We do our warm ups. What makes
So
the show great.
uh, here's why I'm cranky. I dropped a 50-pound weight on my finger today.
Yeah, it's, getting healthy will kill you.
Yeah, it's about the size of a grape and it's all black and blue and it's my fault. I did it and the 50-pound dumbbell came right down on a hard surface with my finger on it. So there was no, play in it. It just crunched it. So
It's not
they said all you
broken
can
or
do
anything like that.
They said all you can do is ice it like I'm going to do this for 24 hours in a day.
Ooh, it's really
But yeah,
black. Yeah,
yeah, it's
looks like
okay.
a
Hey, look, if that's the only problem I have no problems.
bye, baby.
All right. Hey, Tim is on the line. Tim,
Hello,
I
James. How
hey,
know.
are you? Hello, Bill.
good.
Hello,
Thanks for
Tim.
giving us some time tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Looks like you got some kind of cool
Uh,
filter there, Tim. It looks like you got like some retro 1960s filter or something. That looks awesome, man.
It does? Well, I
Good,
don't know.
good color. Good,
I got,
good.
it's all the lighting. I got good lighting in here.
Like the Brady Bunch or something. This is awesome. Ah, look who's here. Hit the deck. Hit the deck.
Hi, Tim. Good to see you. Glad you're on WeatherBrains. How everybody?
Hey, John.
Now, Tim's got the good lighting. He's got I mean, everything's good here.
No,
He's got the whole setup here. Um,
he does.
Well,
we're rank
it is
amateurs.
it is TV. You got to look good, right?
Got the cool logo on his, what, but like OBS type production there, Tim. Well, that's pretty sharp. That's a step of our game span.
No, we really need to crank it up here. Um,
Is that a Blue Origin rocket over there or something you're looking at, John Gordon?
So this came. I cleaned out my office, James, my last day. So
oh
I owned
wow.
my office 25 years. Remember the old Spencer gift shop? Remember Spencer's?
Yes.
Yeah, oh
The
yeah.
Yes.
gang
Yes.
store? This was in there on clearance, a tornado. And I love this thing.
Wow. Wow. That's
This is old.
outstanding.
OLD.
Like some of us on the show here.
WOLD.
But Bill Murray, did you ever buy anything in Spencer Gifts?
I tried to avoid Spencer gifts at all costs. They had like incense and dangerous stuff in there, James. It's kind of scared me.
I'm embarrassed to say the last purchase I made in there. I'm really embarrassed. But this is the pre-show. This is what we do here. We say embarrassing, outrageous things. I was very young, maybe a teenager, but just between us, before Jen gets on here, it was fart spray. Um,
I knew it had to do with gas. I knew it.
At least it wasn't something worse.
that's true. They did have some really tacky stuff in there, but no,
That store
uh,
majored in gas.
yeah, it did. The whole thing was fart spray and whoopee cushions and the whole thing, and um,
I always like
So
the black light
anyway,
stuff. They always had
Did
black.
someone say fart
Yeah,
spray?
exactly, Tim. Yeah.
and that's a show title from James Adelot there. And remember, we cannot use anything we say in the pre-show as a show title because most people don't hear this. So
Unless
That's
you're
a
wearing
great
a,
show
a
title.
purple tie. If you're wearing a purple tie, you can, James. That's in the show, the pre-show agreement.
that's right. So, Tim, you're a consultant. I'd like for you to review James Adelot's tie.
His tie, it's perfect. Perfect.
Ooh.
The color purple looks
Perfect.
very good in HD.
He wore it in honor of
Ooh.
my shirt tonight. Thank you, James A.
Wow. Very liturgical,
Goodness.
too.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we're Holy Week. That's what we are.
Yep.
There you go, Pastor. Give us a good sermon.
I'm not all dressed up like I was last week, James.
No, this is what I'll wear. This is the award I get right here. Yeah, that's no. Bill had the TV clothes on last week.
Did you get that at
Do what,
Spencer
John?
Gifts? Did you get that at Spencer's
Boy,
Gifts?
Yeah.
you would think so. I actually got this from an elementary school. Now, that's outstanding. I mean, usually
That's a compliment
they give me
there.
cakes and cookies, but this is too good. I mean, they all wrote letters and gave me this hat, so that's good.
Is that in honor of some sort of cap suppressing thunderstorms?
Yeah, that's right. The cap. Actually, I still have the Kevin Selly hat from the blizzard of '93 in here. I mean, this is good stuff.
It's like a museum.
No, go back and watch YouTube and the blizzard of 1993 coverage with back then they called him Kevin Collins on the air, not Kevin Selly, but he wore this hat. And when Kevin left Channel 6 to go to Virginia, when I came out to my car that night, this was sitting on the steering wheel. He gifted me the blizzard hat. So anytime I have to dust this thing off, but if we ever have a blizzard again, I'm wearing the hat. So this is for blizzards only. You don't get them often down here.
Indiana Jones used that hat, too, I think.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Hey,
How
John,
y'all
how's your
doing?
basement?
Yeah.
Where the drying continues, and we're much
Oh.
better than my neighbor. I had about 2 inches. My neighbor had 8 inches, and it was not good next door.
Oh no.
Water is no good, and it just there's nothing good about it. Nothing.
Nope.
Um,
Thanks for asking.
No-
You know, the city
good.
is recovering from the mud. Now you got mud, spatter, and dookie, and everything else in there, and the problem is there's a lot of dishonest people in the service
Oh,
industries,
boy.
and people cannot put money out without an agreement. Danger, danger, danger.
Mm.
Oh boy, it's horrible.
Roofers
It's
and
horrible.
drywall and basement foundation people, you got to be real careful.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
And stay away from roofers because I hear they carry shingles.
Oh boy. Hang on.
He's not even going to wait for the chat tonight. He's going straight to the show.
It's still pre-show. I can do that.
That's right. Outrageous things. James Aylin, everyone.
That's it. Humorous anecdotes and outrageous things.
Storage, you're on
That's
the
exactly
board.
what we do here.
Waiting for the humor part.
And we will start the show here in 30 seconds. We have to wait for the top of the hour. So some master control guy came in here today and he said, how long is WeatherBrains? And I said, well, it depends on the week. I mean, it's like
Variable.
we might be an hour and a half. We might be 2.5 hours. We might be just roll with that. Just roll with the flow. So
this guy's
they promised
new?
they'll roll. Yeah. He's the master control supervisor. And welcome, top of the hour. Welcome to our television audience. It's Monday night. We have no weather issues at all for those that happen to be watching by television. And you know what this is? It's Weather Brains, the show for weather geeks, dweebs, nerds, dorks, and weenies. So let's get this thing started here. Let's record track 1. and track 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
WeatherBrains episode 1004. Wow. Rolling along here. This is for April 14th, 2025. WeatherBrains is the weekly show all about weather, the world's oldest weather podcast. We started way back in January of 06. We are 19 years old and counting, 1004 episodes in. And let's see, I see Jen Naramore is up in the Arctic Circle. What's going on in West Virginia? Goodness gracious, of all places.
Yeah, it was a little stormy. It stayed south of us, but it was great today. 73, which meant I had to go mow. And so I did, because tomorrow it'll be 30 degrees cooler and I'm not mowing tomorrow. So anyway, it was a good day to mow. Beautiful. Storm stayed southeast, but they have been severe, even in southern Ohio, and then point south and east. So kind of nutty today with that, but.
Looked like some big hailers coming in toward Charleston, West Virginia. Saw a couple of tornado warning polygons. So interesting situation there. The legend himself, we bow down to the great one, John Gordon, longtime meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service in Louisville, Kentucky, who is, we are so honored, John. We are so honored that you're with us every week. It makes my heart jump for joy. It really does.
I'm honored to be here. This was actually a dream come true. So, Jen, dinner's on me when I see you next.
I'll take you up on that. Sounds good.
So we had, just follow up on James said, there were some massive bewares in West Virginia, which is a state you typically don't get a lot of major hail, right? Very unusual.
Right. And it looks like the LCLs were kind of high, the kind of high base storms, and the hail profiles look really impressive. And the radar signatures, goodness, the VILs were maxed out. I've not heard of reports, but I'm sure somebody got hammered over there tonight.
Oh, yes. I guarantee the roofing industry and the car industry is heading to West Virginia. I met a guy, real quick, James. I met a guy one time. We had a hailstorm in Louisville on the opening night they ever did Churchill Downs, the very first night, 2012. And I had a brand new Equinox. Not good. Went to the track, got hit with everything from pennies to golf balls to ping pongs. So I went, I took my car in. I met this guy. He was so cool. He says, every morning I wake up and I read the national summary from SPC. It's an old I don't know if you got that, James. It's the call letters STADTS. It's got the national summary. And he says, I go to hail. Immediately, we dispensed lots of cars to where the hail is.
Wow. That's the way it ought to work. Goodness gracious. All right. Troy Kimmel, let's see. Are you on the line here? What's happening down in
I'm
Tejas?
here. John, just a reminder, if you and Jen get together, remember following our Huntsville 1000th show, we've been asked to notify law enforcement if we're going to be in any local community. So just a reminder about that. Okay, so no problem.
This is true.
It got up to 93 at Camp Mabry today here in Austin, 91 out at the airport, and it'll be 137 by summer. End of report.
Yeah, that's about all you need to know. That says it all right there. So we're missing our Norman correspondents, but we have our Tulsa correspondent on the line, Dr. James Adelot, who is in Tulsa. Where's Kim tonight? Do we know?
I don't know. My OU flag is up there in the Norman honor. So good question. Good question.
So what's happening in Tulsa town? When did the storm start? Everybody's posting long range, spooky, creepy maps.
Are they ever? Yeah. Yes. We will have some warm advection showers tomorrow night and Wednesday night, probably just north of the Kansas-Oklahoma state line. And then the fun stuff comes as it is on brand for Oklahoma Easter weekend.
Oh, goodness. How many Palm Sunday outbreaks, how many Easter outbreaks have we had over the years? Countless. Hopefully it won't be that bad. Yeah, it really is. But hopefully Kim can join us here in just a second. But let's see here. Bill Murray, let's bring in our guest. I'm excited about that. I have many questions for this man.
Yep. Many questions. Tonight's guest WeatherBrain is an AMS certified broadcast meteorologist, weather communications coach, whose mission is to keep communities safe and help people live better lives through effective, viewer-focused weather communication. A four-time Emmy Award winner, he brings decades of major market experience and was among the first in the nation to incorporate augmented reality into his daily forecast. Tim Heller, welcome back to WeatherBrains.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me back. Appreciate it.
Always love having you. Love following your posts and things you do on your blog and your newsletters you send out. But refresh our viewers, Tim, kind of, how you got to where you are today. Take us back through your career journey.
Well, I've actually been coaching now for 6 years. Left the TV side of the business, the on-air side of the business, back in 2019, the beginning of 2019. After working 35 years on the air, I thought, I've covered everything, every possible type of weather there is. Here in Houston, I was here 16 years, and there's only so many ways you can say hazy, hot, and humid. And kind of got to the point where I was kind of bored, and at the same time identified what I thought was a need in the broadcast meteorology community, and that is for some coaching for meteorologists who are busy with the day-to-day, trying to get the forecast done, don't necessarily think about strategy, don't think necessarily about the objectives, the reason we do what we do. And so I, after many heart-to-heart conversations with my wife, I decided, okay, we're going to give this a try, and started my own coaching company. And today I'm coaching 9 different TV stations and a couple dozen, 48 different meteorologists. So it's funny, I was in fear as you were going around here and you were all talking about what your weather was like today. I really have no idea what the weather was like in Houston because I follow the weather at all of my clients. So I could tell you what it's like in Spokane and Greenville, South Carolina, but I can't tell you what it's like out my own window here because I just don't pay attention to it at home anymore.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And your shot is just beautiful, Tim. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it just radiates class. And what would you say, James? Fine leather books or something like that, maybe?
Yeah, if
Leather-bound
that's
books,
the case,
many-
or it's class, I don't know how you ended up on this show, but
Well,
Tim needs to run as far and as fast as you can.
Yeah.
we occasionally trick a few classy individuals into being on the show, Troy.
I try to be subtle. We've got weather and we've got communication. And so that's what I do. I do weather communication.
There you go.
That's
That's
what I work on.
very, very subliminal, and it works. So, Tim, you of course have, covered this very beautifully. You on your blog, you talk about only 10% of local stations produce relevant online weather content. And why do you think so many stations miss out on this opportunity? Why are they falling short digitally? And, what do you recommend to your client stations and meteorologists that they do about it?
Well, let me back up a little bit and kind of explain where that came from, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please
And,
do.
so I kind of had this feeling just anecdotally as I was looking, as I watch a lot of weather coverage on TV, but I also watch online. And I often would stumble on, most of the time, would stumble on a weather forecast that was billed as the latest forecast. That's how they title it. And it was often a clip of a weathercast that aired on a newscast several hours or sometimes several days prior. And I really got into this last fall. I was tracking Hurricane Helene, and I wanted to see how different stations along the coast were covering it, both on TV and online. And I found one station hadn't updated their website in 6 days. Like the weather forecast, it was labeled the latest forecast, was 6 days old. And another one, I watched the weather video, and this is a station that's in the cone, and their weathercast is, starting off with the almanac and today's highs, and I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, what's the story? The story is you're in the cone of the forecast cone. You should be focused on that. So I started doing some preliminary research, trying to figure out how I was going to study this. And then finally in January, I've kind of figured out the format, how I was going to set up the spreadsheet and all that, because I wanted it to be legit. I wanted to have some very solid numbers. And so the month of January, I surveyed 270 stations, which is a representative sample of the 842 English language television stations that are producing news. And so I it created a random list with the help of AI, a random list of 270 TV stations. And the only thing I'd made sure was that we had, it wasn't weighted by ownership, but I made sure that we had every ownership represented. I made sure that we had at least or actually two stations in the top 50, because I really wanted to hit those. Those are the bigger markets, obviously, serving more people. And so that's really the only filtering I did, was just to make sure that those were represented very well. And then I watched a total of 1,200 different webcasts. And let me tell you, by the end of it, I was ready to repipe my house, replace my windows, and file a lawsuit for injury, because I watched a lot of pre-roll ads. So, but at the end of it, I tallied the numbers, and my suspicion was accurate. Over 70% of the TV stations are just throwing up an old weathercast on their website and calling it the latest forecast. Only about 25%, and it ranged anywhere from 26 to 28%, about 27% then, are recording content specifically for the website and their app. But half of those, they're still including things like current conditions and current radar, which age out before the video even gets to the server. Only about 10% of stations are actually recording content specifically to serve the digital audience. And you ask why, I don't know. I'm not blaming meteorologists for this, because a lot of these systems are set up by corporate and set up by, the web team and people, who determine whatever the strategy is going to be. So I want to be clear there. I'm not blaming the meteorologist for uploading old content. But in many cases, even the meteorologists that are recording the content aren't recording relevant weather information. And why, I don't know. I think this was probably the way we did it when we first started doing websites and we started putting weather content up on the internet, and we just never changed. But we know from research that people are going to websites, and they're going to mobile apps. In fact, in many cases, they prefer that. According to Pew Research, people prefer getting weather and local news information off of digital sources. So we've got to have that content updated. Otherwise, people are not going to come to us for that information when they need it.
I knew this show was built for James A. This show was, I almost just put you in charge of it, James A. So do you want to lead off, or I was going to ask Span a question real quick. Do you want to go first, or you want me to ask Span this question?
No, I like the exploding head comments in the comment section in the chat.
Yeah.
Anytime I see exploding heads, whoever's typed that in has to go. So that's James A.
And it's not, my head's not exploding at this message. My head is exploding over corporate directives to do things, because
Absolutely.
it's basically isomorphism in a way, because everybody in the business, or the majority of people in the business, do it the same way. You can't tell one TV station webpage from another TV station webpage. It's become what consultant-driven radio, what happened to radio in the 90s and early aughts. So yeah, you answered the question why, and I think it's just because nobody wants to put the effort into doing anything past the bare minimum at a corporate level. But my head still might explode. So
do you think, though, that it's we are trained as broadcast meteorologists? Our working weather center is usually in the TV studio. Is some of this the old-fashioned idea, the traditional idea that what we do on TV is the most important thing we do, not realizing that what we do on the digital platforms is just as important, because for some people, that's where they're going to get their weather information?
Absolutely.
Just an old framing.
But Tim, we got to go back though and see where TV changed. I mean, we go back the time period pretty far back, and I think it changed. That's the reason I left TV in 2012. I just decided to do it. But it seemed like it changed. I know people who say that they like to forecast the weather, and they found where they didn't have time to forecast the weather in the weather office because of all these extra things that they're doing, and they felt like they weren't on the ball necessarily during weather events because they were so busy doing all this, they didn't have time to concentrate on the severe weather. And that'll lead to the question that James asked, Span, as the night, goes along, is that how this business has changed. And more importantly, James will ask about it later, but how it's going to change in the future. Because if you think it's changed so far, your head will explode.
And how fast it will change.
Exactly. So
James Fan, you were an early adopter of a lot of digital stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about how that has, influenced your career and how you've kept up along the way. And do you think you
Well,
do
look,
a really, really good job, a great job, a mediocre job? What's your own self-assessment?
I'm horrible at the Ron Burgundy television. No. I'm horrible at the Ron Burgundy television weathercast. I'm horrible at it. I'm not good. It's not my forte. It's not what I do. I think my strength, it's long form, severe weather coverage. I'm much better at that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm much better on the digital side. But the Ron Burgundy, good evening, here's the news. So I'll walk in here at 10 o'clock and I'm coming straight off WeatherBrains, and I'll go in there and do the stuff that I've been doing for 40 years. And again, what it is with me, and we have to be realists here. We have to be realists, everybody. The linear television, it's died. People watch live sports. They'll watch long form tornado coverage. They'll watch some things, but when people go home, they watch Netflix, they watch Hulu, they watch Amazon Prime, they watch YouTube. That's how people consume their entertainment media today, not linear television. When's the last time anybody here watched what's on CBS tonight at 8 o'clock? I have no idea. And again, look, I'm old, and this is people my age that where this is not relevant anymore. And so, yeah, you've still got some people watching these newscasts, but the way people consume media, it has dramatically changed. It's been changing for years and years and years. And if we don't change, we'll go away. It's like the newspapers. Everybody mocked me 20 years ago when I said newspapers won't be in print in 10 years. And I'm not good at predicting some things, but I nail that one. How many newspapers are in print today? All these pinheads, academics, and everybody else, newspapers will always be in print. No, they won't. And the Ron Burgundy newscast won't be here much longer. It's a product of a bygone era. And so we have to move and follow the consumer. It's okay. We'll always be needed. We're always going to be relevant. We're always going to be important. There's always going to be jobs, but we have to change with the way people are consuming media. And if you walk into a Dollar General or a Walmart or a Target where real people hang out, all different demos, and talk to them, they'll tell you this. They watch YouTube. They're going to watch, the YouTube TikTok guy, not the TikTok guys for long form coverage, but they prefer to watch YouTubers instead of the Weather Channel or Fox Weather. And again, everybody in TV gets their back arched and they get all jealous, but they're doing some things right. They're reaching people the right way. And by golly, if we don't change, we're not going to be around much longer. So I work, my deal, I work 4 a.m. to midnight every day, 4 a.m. to midnight. And I love it. I cannot wait to get up tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow morning, I'll do a morning shift at home, mostly digital and social. I'll do an old school TV hit. I'm going to go speak to Salter Elementary in Talladega, a senior adult group in Anniston, and Calera Elementary in Shelby County. And then I'll come in here and do more social, do more, the stuff I do, and do old school television. But to be successful, I have to do it that way. And I don't know any other way to do it. I don't know how to stop, but I love what I do, but we have to change. Everybody, we have to. And I'll stop because Bill gave me 30 seconds to answer and I rambled for 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
Can I add something?
I feel like an old school preacher.
You always have 3 minutes.
Preach.
Tim, take it, and then cross-examination from Mr. Edlund.
Yeah, preach, please. I had not intended to study what we were actually doing in terms of weather coverage because I was really trying to focus on how are we serving the digital. But because I was seeing all of these pre-recorded weathercast on the websites, it did give me some insight in terms of how people are covering the weather. And here's the thing, you talk about your head exploding. I can't tell you how many times I would watch a weathercast and they have things like, here's your current temperature, here's your current wind, here's your current humidity. These are stories about data. These viewers do not come to us for data. The two things that we can do that we can't get from an app is show expertise and share a personality. And those are two things we've got to do every single night. We've got to build those opportunities into the weathercast. And yeah, we only got 2.5 minutes. Why are you wasting and highlighting for 26 seconds every current temperature in your DMA? We got to give people value information they can't get from the app. We have to give them information that they need to know and want to know right now with expertise and with personality. Because James, that people tune into you, because of your personality. That's your draw. And I saw so many generic weather hits of just weather data. Who's going to tune in for that? And so I do think that broadcast meteorologists do share some of the responsibility here, that we're just not being innovative in terms of how we cover. We're still covering the weather like we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I'll shut up.
So the question is, and I'm sorry, Bill Murray, I got one more question. Again, I have a lot of
Go.
questions for this man because he's a lot smarter than me. And the TV thing is a total mystery. Who's watching this? Who is watching the 10 o'clock news tonight on ABC? Who's watching James Adelot on the 9 o'clock news on Fox in Tulsa? And they're very private with their data. We don't see a lot anymore, but I sense they're very old. And for a lot of these old people, Tim, they get really cranky if you don't show them current temperatures. Now, I don't do any of the sunrise, sunset, records, almanac. No, I don't do any of that stuff. But I will show current temperatures because these older people, and they're mostly in their 70s and 80s, and they don't do apps, they don't do websites, they don't do any of this stuff. They don't do Facebook, they don't do social media. They watch old school television like it's 1975. And if you don't show some of that data, they get really PO'd. So do you ignore them and try and bring in some younger people? What do you do about these older people that almost demand the data?
Well, I'll say that I'm not completely against showing current temperatures. I think if there's a story there, that's part of the story that you tell. But I think we have to prioritize the more impactful things. I see a lot of weather coverage that is very chronological. Here's what happened today, here's what's happening now, and here's what's going to happen tomorrow. And then we go chronologically. And what happens if we do that is that sometimes the big event, the next big thing, is coming 4 or 5 days from now. And if we save it for the end of our weathercast, furthermore, you've just spent 2 minutes telling me nothing's going to happen, and then you only have 30 seconds left to tell me about the next big thing. So my recommendation is start with the next big thing, be it 2 days from now, 4 or 5 days from now, whatever. But start with what I need to know about the next big event. And I often share a story with my clients, and I've talked about this at AMS conferences too, that I go back to, and this really hit me. I was flying to Madison, Wisconsin to coach a weather team there. I land at the airport, go up to the car rental counter, hand the woman my Texas driver's license, and she laughs and she said, "Well, you love driving around here this week. We have snow coming Friday." And this was on a Monday. That's what's remarkable about that conversation. It was on a Monday. She wasn't talking about partly cloudy skies today. She wasn't talking about south winds at 5 to 10 miles an hour tomorrow, slightly higher humidity on Wednesday. She was talking about the snow coming Friday. And I went into my weather team and I'm like, you need to be talking about the next big event. And we're talking 3 inches, which is not a lot for Wisconsin. There was no winter storm watch, but it was the next impactful event. So my recommendation to the team that day was start with Friday's storm, cover that, tell everybody what they need to know, what they want to know, when's the snow going to start, how much we're going to fall, will traffic be bad? And then if you have time, then you reset your coverage. Here's what's happening right now. Here's your current temperatures, wind, or whatever you still have time for, and go into your extended forecast. It actually makes for a more interesting weather hit that way too.
I want to tell you,
away.
just a quick comment on that. As a matter of course now, starting on Wednesday, my second graphic is the upcoming weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And the first time one of our well-known consultants saw that, you can't do that.
What?
Why not? Why can't I? But to get back to my other point, we're in the business, if we're going to succeed, of engagement, right? So we're building engagement with viewers. And I think television for years as an industry, and I think corporations still do it, rely on simple metrics like ratings or demographic ratings. So, if you've gone to an MBA class and learned about surrogation, we are chasing a metric instead of the concept the metric is there to judge. And I think for years, that's what's given us, we'll just do that easy thing because we'll get clicks or we'll get whatever, but we're not thinking about long term. We're playing the short game, not the long game. And I think that is, if you're given the time to build engagement and play the long game, those are people like James in Birmingham that are successful.
But it comes to mind now, and Bill Murray can ask a question. I feel like I'm hijacking the
This
program
is your
here.
show. You ask
No,
the
no,
questions
no,
when
no.
you
I'm
want to
just
ask
a,
them.
I'm just a stooge here. I'm the stooge. And I agree, Tim. I agree. If there's goodness, if there's 1 inch of snow in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's 5 days away, you better lead with it. You're right. You have to tell a story. I agree. You should be a storyteller. You've got it right, and you understand the TV side better than anybody. Certainly better than me. But the thing that just crawls up my backside, it's this corporate mandate where local meteorologists are having to call code red, weather emergency, first warn, first alert, high impact, stick your head between your legs day. And they're doing it for rain. They're doing it for fog. They're doing it for events that are routine. And they listen. I am so thankful my people leave me alone. That's the greatest thing they can do is leave me alone. I will tell them I will work harder than anybody else, anybody in this company, but you got to leave me alone. And they've done that, and I'm so thankful for that. I don't have to do that. But it's some of these other groups. I hear that they are under a mandate to have so many code red weather emergency days a month. So if there's no weather emergency, they have to make it up. And I will tell you, it's not only crawling up my backside, but if you follow me into the Dollar General in East Aboga, Andalusia, Op, they will tell you they're sick of the hyperbole. And we can control this. This is the weather enterprise. Now, I'm not talking TikTokers or YouTubers. This is us. And to me, it's gotten out of hand. Tim, I mean, it's just like, it's very frustrating. And I guess it's never going to stop, but somehow they believe this is going to save linear, old school Ron Burgundy newscast by bringing people in. I would suggest if you follow me and live in the real world, and I speak 2 to 3 times every day, and I stop in these places and I talk with people and I listen to them, they will tell you it's driving them away from traditional television newscasts.
I tell my clients, because I work with stations that do issue weather alert days, and I tell my clients that it comes down to the delivery. There's weather alert, and weather alert, and we never want to be there. Rarely do we want to be in the middle, but most of the time it is weather alert. We want to make you aware of whatever's happening. Something, and most of them have come up with, and they're different markets in different parts of the country, so they all have different criteria. But they've got some really, I mean, they worked hard at developing some standard criteria that, and we use the definition of disruptive. What is a disruptive? Not inconvenient, because inconvenience are short-term things, but is it a disruptive weather event coming up? And I'll do respect to John and the National Weather Service. I always tell them, don't chase the warnings, chase the weather, track the weather, and don't wait for the Weather Service to issue a watch or a warning. You can tell people, you can give them an alert that disruptive weather is happening, because the best example I have is that you can have a major lightning storm and the Weather Service will never issue a warning on it because that's not part of the definition. Winds of 40 miles an hour are going to knock down some minor tree limbs, flip over your patio furniture, maybe flip up the trampoline, but there won't be a warning on that. So we can have weather alerts without getting hysterical. And I always tell my folks, we don't hype, we highlight. We don't hype, we highlight what the impacts could be.
James, you finish your comment, and then we'll come back to John Gordon.
Yeah, we got proactive. We saw this one coming down the pike, and we kind of got together as a team and decided, okay, let's do multiple tiers of weather alerts, because having the same alert classification for fog and a tornado day is ludicrous. So I don't know how well you can see that. We made criteria for all seasons, yellow, orange, red, and it's only ours. Nobody else makes that call. Weather team has full authority to do that, but we got proactive because we knew that was coming and went to our folks and said, here's what we want to do. And they were thrilled. And it's working really well. But kind of what you said, it's all in the intonation, but I hate having just one category of weather alert day because they're not the same.
And for different people, disruptive weather means different things. And again, I've seen stations call code red weather emergency for a foggy morning. There's no dense fog advisory, just some patchy fog. Code red. And that's ridiculous. It's nuts. I'm sorry, John Gordon, you go.
Oh, no, this is your show. I totally agree with you. So, Tim, I'm really curious. I'm helping a TV station now in severe weather, so I've gone to the other side too. So, I'm
Welcome.
very curious on your answer on this. I want to know, without a leading question, what do you think of the TV stations, broadcasters, meteorologists who go extremely technical in severe weather coverage? They branch in density, storm relative motion of 80 knots. Uh, well, Skilling is my hero. I will never say ill anything of Skilling. Skilling talked about geostrophic winds, which he could explain, which I wouldn't think anyone else should do that. But how technical should people be and should they not be? What is your advice for everyone listening?
Well, I think there's a lot of meteorological terms that the average person is not going to understand. And I think that there are opportunities, there are times where you can, if you have the time, explain those. I'm not sure in the middle of a severe weather event that's the time for that to happen. Um, I have one of my clients who, and streaming is very big right now. A lot of stations are doing 24/7 streaming channels and allows them to cut in and do extended coverage on streaming, not on TV. And I've got a client who spent 22 minutes, and I taped it because I thought it was an excellent TV, even though it's streaming. And what he did is he did all the analysis that you do behind the scenes. He did that on TV or on the stream, and it was really fascinating to watch. There were no warnings in effect, and I think, well, some warnings eventually popped up, and then he switched modes and got all into severe weather tracking. But he did a great job of explaining it. He had time to go through it. Um, but I think there's a time and a place for that. And I don't think in the middle of a severe weather event, we need to be, educating the viewer. I think at that point, it's about safety, get them to a safe place.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. So I'm really curious. I don't know what James or James say, but yeah, it drives me nuts. I just, that is not the time or the place. And my own personal opinion is sometimes people interpret radar data completely
Mhm.
incorrectly and try to show everyone how smart they are. And they're
Right.
really causing nothing but chaos.
Oh, we have a station
Now,
here in
no, you
Houston. We have a
preach
station
on,
here in
guys.
Houston
Yeah.
for a while was showing the five, and literally was titled this 500 millibar chart. And was the five, like, right? And here's the 500 millibar chart. I'm like, what? You're trying to make yourself look smart? I mean, you end up looking dumb in the process because people can read through that.
And I think a little, if there's something really important that can help people get through an event, it's okay. But I've seen so many guys on the air, they're trying to impress everybody else with technical terms and jargon and radar products that really don't help you tell the story that people need to hear. And you guys both totally nailed it, in my opinion, on that one. So a tornado event or a high impact event is not the time to be teaching, meteorology 301. That's what you do I do it on these 10-minute videos I do twice a day over on the streams and the socials and everything else. It's not for something like that. So I totally agree.
I do
I
say
think
that
it's
there's been a lot of meteorologists I've seen, are using correlation coefficients, they're using some of the dual pole data, and they're doing that effectively. Uh, but again, there's a time and a place for that. And So for those that are, I don't want to say that there's no room for that. I mean, there's times where that data is extremely helpful, both as terms of a meteorologist and in terms of validating the information that you're putting out too.
And I think the transparency is very important in that messaging. And we heavily have used correlation coefficient when it is telling us the story. We had the EF1 tornado in Owasso, suburb of Tulsa, at 6:20 in the morning last week, and we're able to pop correlation coefficient on. And every time we do it, I introduce it as, here is, it's a big name, call it correlation coefficient, but this is what it is showing us. And this is why it's important for us to look at this real time. And it adds context, transparency, depth, and helps reinforce your ability to message it. But I think it's still important to be very transparent and say, this is what it is. This is showing us that debris is being lofted by this tornado up into the radar signal, which means there is a tornado occurring right now at that intersection.
So, Tim, what are some good best practice? I'm sorry, James. Keep going. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
I'll make sure we close this up. No. Finish
No,
up, James. I'm not.
I just had one quick thing to say. I think it varies from market to market also when it comes to what you say, and you have to understand the people and the culture of the market that you serve to be successful. Not every market is the same. What works for James in Tulsa might not work for me in Birmingham, and the same thing for Oklahoma City or Chicago or Louisville or Austin or Columbus or wherever. And you have to understand the people. And again, that's why, to me, getting out of the stinking little cubicle where you work or your studio and meet with people every single day is critical to helping you be a better communicator during times of severe weather. So if I use a correlation coefficient product, I know where to go with that here. I don't in Tulsa and I don't in Louisville, but I know what to do with it here. But you got to be careful. Again, the point of us being on the air during a tornado event, it's to mitigate loss of life. That's it. Mitigate loss of life. It's not to impress some pinhead consultant. It's not to impress anybody except saving somebody's life here. And you have to do it the right way. And we understand it better than anybody else. And and again, I'm thankful for the freedom that I have from the people I work with here to do what I need to do, Bill. All right. I'm sorry. I'm done.
No, I think we've got to continue a little further here because James A. is pointing out something very important. So I agree totally with what you're saying, James A. So make that point.
Yeah, Ryan Vaughn was amazing at this during those tornadoes in Northeast Arkansas. He's calm.
He's good. He's good.
Yeah, calm and clear and relevant and focused. I think we often mix up, we're trying to save lives with we're trying to give information to people in an understandable way that they can rank their risk internally and make a protective action decision. And I think that's the true science behind it. So it's very important to be able to be calm and clear and relevant and give people the information they need to be able to decide whether or not they need to take a protective action.
Ryan is a young James Spann. Let's give a huge shout out for WeatherBrains. Ryan's a rock star.
Absolutely.
No, he is. This guy's really good. And he understands the people he serves. He's out with them all the time. He gets it. He's a great scientist. He's a great communicator. And he's a great role model for people that should be looking to somebody that's doing it right, as Ryan Vaughn.
That's awesome. Great shout out to Ryan. It's been a long time since we had him on the show. We'll have to have him back on here since he is now officially in the Suspender Club. Tim, question for you. How do you teach calm urgency? This is obviously an important thing. Can you teach it? Or how do you convey that message to your younger meteorologists or maybe even older meteorologists who need that?
It's interesting because right now I've got a couple that I'm working with and it's not, they're almost too calm. And so I've been telling them that you've got to have an appropriate sense of urgency. That's the phrase I use, an appropriate sense of urgency. I don't want you hysterical, but the viewers have to know that today's weather is different. Today's weather is not a normal day. And So it's interesting that at least the ones that I'm coaching, it's the opposite. They're not, and maybe I'm just blessed that I've got great, great clients, because none of them are hysterical. None of them are going off the handle with their weather alert days. They seem to all have a pretty even approach to it. In fact, I'm trying to ramp a couple of them up to get a little bit hotter. Not hotter, that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. A little, again, appropriate sense of urgency on that. I, you know, I've worked with people in the past where they were a little bit, you know, hyped up. And how do you coach that? You take them out to lunch and you say, look, you're not doing yourself any favors. You got to calm down a little bit. And so sometimes it's just a heart to heart conversation. And to make them aware of it. They may not, in some cases, be aware of that.
James Spann, how in the world do you manage the pressure on your set when the stuff is flying?
Well, again, I'm so busy. I don't feel any pressure whatsoever. If there's a 500-pound weight on top of you, but if there's 1/8 of an inch of separation, you don't feel it. And that separation for me, it's the busyness. I'm not smart enough to it takes a lot of my brain CPU cycles to process the information I'm seeing. You're looking at, 5 different National Weather Service chat sessions. You're looking at a Slack session with our Sky Watchers. You've got all these TV station folks with live dash cams and streams on the live views. You've got the spotters, the social media guys with their live streams, and you're looking at social media trying to tell a coherent story and at the same time being a radar analyst. And let me tell you what, it's brutal out there. I don't have time to think about pressure, emotion, none of that. I'm just too busy. And in a way, I'm thankful for that. And I do know that, and James Adelot has talked a lot about this on the show here, it's information overload, which is becoming an increasing problem. The amount of content I'm seeing now through social media, it's mind-boggling. And I know I've almost reached the end of my time doing it by myself. I can't do it. I'm going to have somebody in the studio to handle that incoming traffic and sort that out to free up some CPU cycles to do some other things. But I don't feel pressure. I've never felt pressure. Part of it, you just do it for a long time and it's what you do. But I'm so stinking busy, if that makes any sense.
You're right on. I feel the most pressure and I'm the most uptight and I'm the most stressed out on severe weather days before the first echo appears. Once that happens, I don't have time for it. And of course, after it's over, when we're finished with continuous coverage, and I sit down and my first thought was, geez, please tell me nobody got killed or injured. But yeah, before convection develops, Alan Shepard prayer every time. And if you know what that is, you understand if you've done severe weather.
John Gordon, you were, of course, leading the floor of the busy National Weather Service office that had plenty of severe weather, plenty of flooding, plenty of weather problems. Talk about how it played out in your shop.
Yeah, I was too hyper when I was younger. As you get more experience, I like this Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler, when to hold him, when to fold him, when to walk away, when to run. You have to know when to be excited and when not to be excited. You know when to pull it back. Every weather event, it just blows my mind what we've dealt with, and I've dealt with for 40 years. I had an event in 95, Tim, November 95. We had a squall line. James was before you were born, probably. James Adelman. Anyway,
Yeah. Hey.
I was working radar, and we had supercells, QLCS. That's when remember the old pup, James? Remember the old radar pup, that thing?
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah. And I saw this thing in southeast Kansas. I'm like, oh God, I think that's snow. I'm going to ignore it. I literally said, it is not there. And suddenly we get these reports of thunder sleet in Joplin and all this. And I told everyone, let's calm down. Someone needs to deal with winter weather, obviously. We have 80 over here and 34 over here. There might be a front somewhere in the vicinity. And you just have to know when to be calm, Bill. I just think the young, in general, I think youngsters may be too exciting, maybe. Apparently, you got a couple that need to amp it up, Tim. So I don't know about them, but I was too excited years ago. And as I got older, people get all excited. I'm like, this really is not that big a deal. You'll know when it's a big deal. Well, how will you know? Well, you'll know.
Tim, you wrote a really cool piece about weather trauma and the emotional toll that our messaging can take on our viewers.
Mhm.
What can we do as broadcasters to sort of tamp down that fear while still being effective?
I think some of it is the tone. People have to, and this is a very hard thing to coach and to teach somebody, but people have to know just by the way you are addressing them that you care, that you live in the community, you shop in the same grocery stores, you go to their church, you talk to their kids in school, that you live there and that you are concerned about it. I remember, thought just came to my head during Harvey, during the first wave of many waves of extremely heavy rain and flooding, and like things were just going nuts. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were in the midst of this pattern where we were getting tornado warnings and flash flood warnings simultaneously. And how do you message that? You tell people to go to the lowest level is flooded. And we knew that by the time that the tornado warnings are coming out, we were watching the velocity mode. It was spinning up very quickly. And at some point I went off microphone, had to go to the bathroom, just take a quick mental break, turned it over to whoever was in the weather center at the time, because we always tag teamed. And I said, I need to go off mic here for just a minute. And this is like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I stood back and I kind of watched their coverage for a little bit, and it dawned on me, I'm like, okay, we have to change the tone of our coverage, because we were hitting the tornado warnings as if they were tornado warnings, right? Your typical tornado warning. And this was not a typical. And I remember walking over to the weather center, and I wish I could remember who I was working with that night, but walked over to the weather center and remember saying, okay, we just need to get people through the night. We need to bring the tone down a little bit and still get the warnings out, but people need to know that we're going to help them through the night. I mean, it was just a change in the tone. We still delivered the information we needed to, but I realized watching us, and sometimes I think that you need to do that. You need to step back and look at your coverage, like, okay, how is this being received by people? And that moment standing in the back of the studio, I felt like, okay, we just have the wrong tone here, and we need to change the tone quickly. And so I think that's some of it, and that's it. It's people got to know that you care, and hopefully you do. And if you don't care, get off the air.
James A., you make a real important point there in the chat, and I think something we have to always remember.
Yeah, and one thing I keep hearing repeatedly is watching streaming coverage around the country, and it's a great way to learn, by the way, is when a meteorologist is looking at velocity or something to do with the storm and says, that's getting better. No, it's not getting better. It's
Right.
worse. The rotation is not better. This is worse. Be on the side of the humans.
Alan Seals did a presentation at AMS one year. He talked about the words that we use, and they're the wrong words. We say it's favorable for severe weather. It's not favorable. Severe weather is not favorable. And he had an excellent presentation talking about all the wrong words that we say, and that one really stuck out to me. That things are looking better. I'm like, no, they're not better.
No.
They're not looking better till the watch is lifted and the weather's moving out of the area. That's for sure. Tim, you talked about 4 key lessons that broadcast meteorologists need to unlearn. Talk about those for a minute with us.
Whoa. One of
Do
them
we have time for this?
And we'll be here till midnight.
Yeah.
This is one of
Here
those
till
2.5
midnight.
hour shows James was
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah,
James A.
yeah.
One of them, first of all, is the chronological. You don't need to be chronological into your coverage. Boy, what else did I write about that? Let me look it up here real quick. I write so much.
Your blog is just a treasure trove
True.
of information.
So the first thing
to
is that you're not a broadcast meteorologist, you are a multimedia meteorologist, and that we have to prioritize what we are doing on the digital side. And I don't mean Facebook, I don't mean Twitter, and I know that a lot of meteorologists really are concerned about their engagement, they're concerned about the likes and the shares, and some meteorologists have figured out a way to monetize that. Great, congratulations, I'm glad. But the station branded website and digital app, mobile app, is just as important as what you're doing on TV. We have to prioritize that. It's not an either or, it's an and. Um, I think that, somebody mentioned here that meteorologists don't have time. I'm probably going to make some enemies when I say this, but don't waste your time forecasting the less impactful weather. Let the weather service go with it, or take your model of choice. Spend your time on the weather that is impactful. If it's Tuesday and you've got impactful weather coming up Friday, spend your forecasting time focused on that, and then also spend your on-air time focused on that. Don't be wasting your time. I wish I could get back all the minutes I spent trying to figure out if it should be 72 or 75, right? And we're all guilty of that, aren't we? I wasn't the only one, was I? But yeah, you don't have to you focus on the impactful weather. Weather doesn't need to be chronological. And this kind of goes back to what I said previously, that you have to prioritize what you're doing on the digital platforms as well as what you're doing on TV.
and James, you just hit a huge number on your Facebook last night. Talk about social media and what that's meant to you. Obviously, you're not chasing that number. That number's happening organically for you. You earned every one of those followers. But talk about how social media sort of changed your job and why it's important in what you do.
Well, again, we're all servants here. We are all servants. We are in a servant position, whether you work for the Weather Service, you work for private sector, broadcast, old school, new school, whatever. To do this job right, you have to have the heart of a servant. And to me, in order to do that, you have to do what's right for the people. And if they believe you're doing what's right for them, they will follow you. They will find you. They'll find your old school TV station. They'll find you on social media. And I've tried to do that over the years. So if you look at the content that I produce over there, not only on television, but on social, it's not about me and nothing personal. And I'm probably going to PO a bunch of people when I say this, but so many in this old school Ron Burgundy TV business, it's all about them. No, it's not. It's not about you. It's not. It's about the people that you serve. I had a person, and I'm not going to say who it is, but they applied for a job here. And the first thing I do is I troll your social media accounts. And listen, I'll find you. I will find the things that you think I can't find. I'm darn good at it. And on one of the major social platforms, 99 out of the last 100 posts, what do you think? What do you think the posts were? 99 out of the last 100 selfies, pictures of this job candidate, which means you're telling. And listen, there's nothing wrong with doing it every once in a while. We all do. That's fine. 99 out of 100, you're telling the people you serve, it's not about you. It's about me. Who gives a red rip about you or me? And if you understand that, if you're there for them, you've got to be there for them when they need you. And again, I know that we all need sleep and we all need to recharge and we all have to watch our mental health. I understand that, but you've got to work long, hard hours to be successful. And so the content that I produce, whether it's on old school television or it's on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or X or YouTube or whatever, the goal is to give the people that are watching something useful that they can take with them, and it helps them. And the question I have for a lot of weather people, so that last post you made, what good does that do your viewers? What good does 99 out of 100 selfies? What good? You're showing the fact that you got white teeth, that you got a new suit, that you got a new hairstyle. And again, every once in a while it's okay, but that's all you do. So my whole position It's looking out after the people that we serve. And if they really believe you, and there's so many phonies out there, but if they really think in your heart you're there for them, they will find you. They'll find your TV channel. They're going to go to Channel 4 News, Dallas Fort Worth with Tim Hiller. And they will latch on to you. And on the socials, it's the same thing. So that's my mode of operation over there. Sorry to sound so preachy.
No, we
It's
love it when
Easter
you
week. I
preach,
guess that's why I'm so preachy.
Pastor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly right. Tim, anything you want to say to that?
By the way, Tim and I used to work at the same channel. I worked there like 100 years ago. I worked there. I worked there in the 1980s. Now, Troy, you remember Channel 4 in Dallas, right? Fox 4.
Absolutely.
So
yes, sir.
this is how old I am. When I was there, it was Channel 4 News with Clarice Tinsley, Steve Bosch, James Spann, and Paul Crane on sports. This was in the 1980s, okay? This is like 40 years ago. That's how long it's been for me. And it was the CBS channel back in those days.
Yep.
And let me tell you what, his history they had with the Kennedy assassination and everything. But and Tim, I don't know about you. I cherish my time in Dallas. And quite frankly, I will tell you, and this is chasing a weird rabbit, but when I was there, we had the L-1011 crash at DFW Airport. John Gordon, you might remember that. This was August of '85, and it happened during the 6 o'clock news. And I will tell you, it was a horrific aviation disaster. And of course, it changed everything in terms of wind shear and aviation forecasting. But watching, not us, Tim, but the station down the street, how they covered that event, WFAA. It was so good. To this day, the blood is running through my veins of Marty Haig and Channel 8 and what they did that night. And so I look back on the years in Dallas and I learned so much. And I was a kid. I was in my 20s. I had no business being there. But I'm thankful for the things I learned. And again, it was great. But you were there in the 1990s. And Tim was good. Tim's a big market guy. I'm just a stooge.
No, in fact, when I started there, they said you'll never be as successful as the guy that was here back in the '80s.
Oh yeah, right.
Show title.
There's your show title right there.
Yeah, that exactly. Yeah.
How did WFAA get that call sign? That always
From
seems
all
strange.
Legacy.
I
Legacy
know,
from
but
before
why? What was the significance of it?
They were a low-powered AM station before the FCC Act of 1934, and somehow the same ownership is the one who got the initial TV license. I don't remember what the FAA stands for.
Working for all alike.
Okay.
Wow.
That's what we had.
Wow.
That's what we had,
Wow.
Working for all alike. That's what we had always been told anyway.
Okay, well, it sounds good, even if it wasn't true, but they couldn't miss with that call sign there because that was a horrific plane crash, James Spann. And I can't even imagine. I remember watching it on CNN here, and
I was
the reporter. The reporters knew the story. They knew how to cover an aviation disaster. They knew the territory, and they were so good. Everything was right. They did long-form coverage. They didn't go back to regular programming like we did. We did a cut-in with Clarice, and we go back to programming. Cut in with Clarice, go back to programming. They stayed with it for hours and hours. And I'm thinking, how stinking cool is this? Why can't we do weather this way? And it was so good. And this is during the glory days of television news back in the 80s. You had... goodness gracious, you had the right people. Troy Dungan was doing the weather over there. Tim, I don't know if Troy was there when you were there in the 90s.
Yeah.
But we had Harold Taft was still on Channel 5. Yeah. James ate a lot. You know, you've heard stories about Harold. He was at Channel 5. Troy was at Channel 8, and I was at Channel 4. And it was an amazing time to be in television news. And I'm always thankful for the people I met in the weather enterprise in Dallas in the 80s. I got to know Alan Moeller. Goodness, Al and Skip Ely and all these guys. Oh, it was so good. So it was, but a lot of what I saw that night in August of 1985 is still in my heart and in my soul. And it's a part of what I do when I'm out there in that green wall during tornado outbreaks. So where were you, Troy, in 85?
Yeah, I want to hear what Troy had to say.
This is the weird one, is that August 2nd, 1985, I believe it was a Friday night. And the reason I say that is that's my birthday. And I was in Dallas. I was downtown Dallas when I looked out west from downtown. I could see the smoke. And it was then that I went with friends and we just hunkered down in front of the TV the rest of the night. Next day, I actually went out with my press card to DFW Public Safety and got the chance to ride out onto the apron that next morning,
Wow.
next day.
Well, I was scheduled, Troy, to go back home. Everybody in my family, their birthdays right around the 1st of August. And we're going to come back to Alabama, had the next week off for the birthday celebration. But I wound up staying 2 extra days to meet with the NTSB people because we had Doppler weather radar. And they wanted the radar data and they wanted my testimony. And it's obvious what happened. It wasn't that hard, but they still wanted me to stay. But it was just a horrible incident where you had loss of life on the ground. You had loss of life, obviously, on the airplane. You had some that survived. And I can still close my eyes and see the images.
It was real interesting that night, some of the Weather Service stuff that had happened. The radar was, the network radar was at Stephenville back then. And if you remember, this was a very isolated event. The Dallas-Fort Worth area had seen highs above 100, a very much hot afternoon. This is very isolated activity. And that one cell was on that northeast side of the airport. There, was it 114, I guess, or 121? And it just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, you know, I still show that video. There's a video out there that someone put together. It's not NTSB, but it was one of those cases where this is why nowadays I would show it to students and say, this is why nowadays when there's a thunderstorm at the airport, you're going to circle for a while and you just will get used to it. And you kiss the hand of the pilot when you get down the ground after that, because there were so many changes, Tim, through the years, and James. And, but this to me was really fascinating. And I just by accident was in.
So that day, Bill Reed was a forecaster at Fort Worth, the Hurricane Center director. He told me, he said it was like 100 degrees. There was only 25% coverage. He says, but every single one was producing microbursts. And that one changed aviation when everyone flies. Everything changed. Fujita went in there. That was after the Eastern Airlines mess in 75 up in New York. And then he finally coined microburst. And pilots change when they do their simulating training. They do microburst training because of that event, that horrible day, which is 40 years, Bill Murray, Mr. Historian, this year.
Well,
planes were falling out of the sky all the time, Troy Kimmel, and now that just never happened.
Delta Flight 191, that along with Southern Flight 242, I think changed aviation weather so much. Late 70s again, in the mid 80s as well. And we began to finally learn more about what we could and couldn't do, pilots and so forth. And yeah, just something I'll always remember.
Now you hear it on every air traffic control transmission in a wind shear situation, James A. You hear them talking about it, gain and loss and whatever on approach, and it's a constant source of conversation, and it's keeping people safe, and that's wonderful. And you had something else to add about the history of Dallas television there, James A. I wanted everyone to hear.
Yeah, WFAA had the live feed from the Corsicana radar that Lloyd Huffman built. And it was so far ahead of its time with graphics because they had an HP graphics computer with that did the mapping for it. And I still remember when they showed the zoom view of that, they actually had the runway layout on their graphics. And I thought, man, that is the coolest. While the rest of us have Cavoris dial-up, Radac, whatever, with a giant ground clutter sitting over Stephenville. But yeah, I mean, that was amazing. And just an interesting story about the Huffman, he built the Doppler module for that radar too at somewhere about that time, because he showed up at NSSL wanting to talk to people at NSSL because he wanted to build a Doppler. And they looked at him like he just sprouted a 14th leg. And he had to convince them, look, I know what I'm talking about here. I can build a Doppler radar. I did this. And so that radar was sitting on the corner of the hospital in Corsicana before they put it on a water tower just to have its own tower. But I mean, it was amazing, and it was so far ahead of its time.
Oh, they were so good. Channel 8 was just so good back in the 80s and I guess into the 90s. Of course, I would wind up coming back here, but I learned so much by watching their entire operation. But that Corsicana radar was rocking. I mean, that thing was, the graphics were unbelievably good. We had a ADC radar. I forget what ADC stands for. There was a guy in
Advanced.
Indiana.
Oh, Marty something.
Advanced, yeah, Marty Reese. Marty Reese was the
Yeah.
guy's name. And he was in Indiana, as I recall, in this little the antenna, the radar antenna was about the size of a kitchen trash can. I mean, but it was a turbulence detecting little Doppler processor in there that you could show on the air. And when we had that down at the, down at Cedar Hill, down at the tower site down there, and in addition to the old, the Stephenville radar and stuff. But yeah, that was just a bad. I didn't mean to chase this rabbit, but
No.
again, I think it's a study in communication and empathy and doing it right. And that's what I want to do. And Bill Murray, that's why I like Tim Heller so much, is that he understands the television side of this like nobody else. His stuff is just great. And if you don't follow his blog and everything, you need to do that. Subscribe to his newsletter. I'm your publicist, Tim.
Thank you. But James, you touched on something there in this whole conversation, and even some things that you said earlier. Initially we talked about the fact that it's the 75-year-old viewers that are still watching us that are looking for the current temperature. But when things happen, people tune in. And yeah, big things are going to draw more people to the TV, but you don't know the events that are happening in people's lives that will make them tune into the TV to figure out what's going on today or what might happen tomorrow, which is why I think it's important for broadcast meteorologists every day to deliver essential information, because you don't know which eyeballs you're attracting and which viewing habits you're enticing. You've got to deliver every day so that you build, like James has done over the years. I mean, you didn't just start, with a huge audience. You built that over time. And I think that you have to deliver every day so that you build that over time. But you can't wait for the big events. You got to do it every single day. There's something about the weather every day that is impactful. I like to say there's no such thing as a quiet weather day. There's something happening that is impactful to viewers. And it might simply be a quick temperature rise. It might be a gusty wind, whatever. On the quietest weather days, there's something happening that will be impactful to somebody out there.
And Tim, winter weather is notoriously difficult to communicate. And so talk about some of the mistakes you see us making, and, how can we do a better job explaining uncertainty and timing and all those things that come with winter weather?
So one of the things that I've noticed lately, well, not really lately, but the last couple of years, is that we have a tendency to show a lot of the model data. And so we'll show the viewers, here's model, here's the GFS model, and here's the European model. And I'm not sure that the viewer at home really cares what the model is called. I recommend to my team, when you've got this uncertainty, and I realize, because I've worked in the Midwest for many years, and I realize that there's uncertainty, especially with winter storms, much like hurricanes, that sometimes it's a difference in the timing, the placement, or the strength of the storm. And so what I've always recommended to my teams is that in those tricky situations, figure out the model that has been most consistent, run after run, which model has verified last time, pick the model that you think is going to verify or has the best chance of verifying, show that, and then if you feel like there's another model that shows a completely different scenario, explain not the difference in the model, but the difference in the meteorology. Because then you look like the pro that you are. So you say, but if the storm goes south, this is what's going to happen here. Or if the storm speeds up, or if the storm pulls in more cold air or warm air. But I think there's room to explain the uncertainty. And yeah, that's going to take more time, but that's really all you need to do. Just focus on that part of the weather story.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. It seems like a lot of people, Bill Murray, they've just become model posters. All right, here's the GFS, here's the European, here's the Japanese, here's the UK Met, here's the blah, blah, blah. And so you're demanding that people, your audience, do your work. Your job is to take all this model data and tell a coherent story. People just want to know, is it going to snow and how much and when does it start? They don't know anything about these models. They're not trained to interpret them. And yet it seems like so many times we just throw this stuff out there and ask them to figure it out. Here is the euro. I don't know if that's productive. And let me say, I'm sure I've been guilty of that at a time or two where I shouldn't be doing something like that. But to me, Tim, we ought to be interpreting this data and telling a coherent story.
Use the model to tell your story. So you figure
Yeah.
out the forecast and then figure out the model that's going to best display or deliver that message. If you think you're going to get 5 inches of snow, pick the model. It's a graphic choice, I think. Pick the model that shows that scenario. And if there's not a model that does, hand draw it. You know what? You can still hand draw sometimes. You don't have
Ooh.
to. I know.
Yeah,
You can
Tim.
do it.
Yeah. So Tim, last June, the convective models were doing horrible. James may remember this. Day after day after day. And they were not initializing. And I told my guys, I don't give a flip about the models. I want to know what you think. You look at all the data, it's tools. I don't look at it as models. I look at all the data available and you make a cohesive forecast. And I've been to Rotary Talks, which is annoying. What happened to the American model? Why is the European winning? What are we doing wrong? And I'm like, I wish they would not even say the name of the model on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about models and things like of such computer things, Tim, talk about AI for a second because it's becoming really prevalent and you really encourage its use in the weather office. So talk about how we should be embracing it and some cool ways you can see us using it that's effective and safe.
So I've got a couple of weathercasters that are not trained meteorologists, and so what I have encouraged them to do is to take the area forecast discussion from the Weather Service, copy and paste it into AI, and have it summarize. And you can even go as far as, and because I've tested it, you can say summarize this in 100 words or less. Identify 3 essential messages that I should deliver. I mean, you can create scripts, and you just have what they call AI agents. You can create an agent that does that for you, and you just copy and paste the discussion in there, and it's pretty good. So that's one way to use it. Obviously you still kind of want to go through that and make sure that it's accurate, but it's a way, if you've got a lot of information and you want to synthesize it very quickly, you can use AI to do that. I think that, and I've shared my thoughts with the weather company, WSI, for those old schoolers, that my ideal weather station is that I come in to work and I sign into my computer and I've got 3 monitors, right? I've got one for forecasting, one for presentation, and one for distribution and or production. And I sign in and the AI has already done some analysis for me. And over here on my forecasting panel, it's pulled up to 72-hour low level vorticity, the temperature dew point depression, and all of that because this is what I should be focusing on, right? It has identified the most impactful weather that's going to develop over the next 10 days. And so it helps me sort through the data because, as we've talked about before, there's a lot of information overload. So it helps me sort through the data, figure out the data that I need to focus on. I've finalized the forecast. It's got a general forecast there for me, but I kind of fine tune it. Once I hit publish, my middle monitor, which has got my my production, all of the graphics change in my show based on what it knows I like to present in each of my hits. And over here on this one, it's written a social media post for me. It's written a web article for me. It's got a formatted webcast, and I approve everything. And once I hit publish, it all happens. You still have the forecast. You still have the forecaster in the loop there. I make the final determination, but to me, that's my dream weather setup. Having AI help us forecast, create content, and then distribute the content or produce the content on different platforms. Can we get that by next week?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to deliver it to us, Tim. So
Oh,
we'll be waiting on that one.
yeah.
That one is a dream come true for sure. Now, Tim, you've worked with meteorologists even in Nigeria.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that for a minute, because that by itself is cool. But talk about the common thread you see emerging, recently among us as weather communicators.
Yeah. So first of all, yes, I have been coaching the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, which is like the National Weather Service for Nigeria, for the whole country. And they have 11 on-air presenters, they call them, and they're all meteorologists with either bachelor's or master's degrees in meteorology. And they're on-air presenters, and you can watch them on YouTube. You can Google that, and you'll see, see their presentation. And it was a very simple presentation, and so a lot of it was, focusing on messaging. Uh, they had a very a scripted way of delivering the weather every day among the whole team, and so some of them we have been able to get now to actually ad lib their presentation, so it's much more conversational. We And this required some change in the management side because management had very specific order of graphics they wanted presented, and I had recommended that if air quality is poor, and that's the biggest impactful thing happening in Nigeria, that should be the lead story, that we should talk about that first. And so now they're doing that. So now they're restacking their weather hits to focus on what is the most impactful event. They're a little more conversational, and it's been fun. It's been fun for me as a meteorologist because they have three extreme different weather climates. They've got the northern part, which is dry and hot, and they've got the middle part, which is temperate, and then they've got a coastal area, which of course is tropical. And they are serving a whole country. 55% of the country lives in poverty. Even though those people are in poverty, many of them still have cell phones that they are able to charge within their communities. So a lot of the communication is through the YouTube videos that NIMET produces. And so it's been an interesting coaching experience for me, and it's been fun meeting the people. And let me tell you that they are so appreciative of having feedback because they just don't get a lot of it. And it's been a fun experience for me as a coach.
I've got a quick follow-up on that. I'm going to channel my inner Kim since she's not here. But what I would imagine the culture of what you're communicating from broadcast clients in the United States is different from what you're communicating in Nigeria. But what similarities are there?
What is the message that people need to know? I mean, all of my coaching and my clients are tired of me asking this, but I always go back to this statement. What do the viewers, your most valuable viewers, what do they need to know and want to know about the weather right now? The moment you are on TV, and if you're in a morning show, that's going to change every time you step in front of that camera because the weather's changing throughout the morning. The 5 p.m. presentation should be different than the 6 because you've got different, the viewers are different there. And they also you're now getting into the evening hours. Your 10 o'clock should be completely different because people are now in bed. They're thinking of the next day. So what do the viewers need to know and want to know right now? And for the Nigerians, it was the same thing. What do they need to know and want to know right now? The challenge was they were recording the videos 24 hours in advance. And that's just how they do it. So they record the video today and it airs tomorrow. And so they didn't want to be very specific sometimes in terms of quantity of rainfall, for example, or when rain might begin or when it might end, because there was some uncertainty in the forecast. So we had to make some concessions for that, but it still went back to like, what is the most impactful thing? And challenge for me was everything was in Celsius. So they would start their weathercast and I'm like, you have 42 degrees in the northern part of the country. And, you've got 32 in the south. The 42 is the most impactful part. Maybe that's what we start with. And once I explained that, it made sense to them that, okay, maybe we need to start with that. And that they were constantly going to, well, where's the rain falling? Well, sometimes the rain's not that big of a deal. Sometimes 42 degrees is a bigger deal. So what do your viewers need to know? What is it that they need to know or want to know? And the want to know, we can kind of guess at. They want to know what the weekend's going to be like. They want to know what some day is going to be like. But the need to know part is where we can really demonstrate our value. They need to know when the rain starts, when it ends, how much we're going to get, will traffic be bad? Those are the types of things that viewers need to know. And I believe our viewers are smart. The difference is between us and them is that we have access to information they don't have, and that's what makes us valuable.
So I'm going to hop in here and I'm going to talk about that weird medium that I'm on called radio. I've been doing radio broadcasting for 28 years and have seen so many changes in radio broadcasting. Now, my first question, do you work with radio broadcasters, Tim, or are you primarily doing TV stuff?
I do TV. Actually, most of them are TV. There is a Christian radio station here in Houston, KSBJ, and I'm actually working with the on-air disc jockeys there to help them present more, or deliver more valuable information in their weather updates, so that there's a little more depth to it other than just, temperatures and sky. But I'll tell you this, Jen, I tell all my morning meteorologists that you are on the radio. Pretend you're on the radio, because people aren't watching TV as much as they are listening. They're brushing their teeth, they're making their lunch, they're letting the dog in, the dog out. And so for my morning meteorologist, a lot of times in coaching sessions, I'll close the lid of my laptop and we'll listen to their weather presentation to see if we can understand. They have to be more descriptive, like you have to be on the radio.
Yeah. And I was just going to talk about that a little bit because this has been a great conversation because I have to do TV broadcasting in 20 to 30 seconds. And I have to get the point out. And I learned, I worked at the Weather Channel and the radio department there. And I did learn quite a bit of good things because we tried working on, what's the big story and, trying to formulate our forecast. And I've taken that away as I've been working independently as well. Is how do you tell people what's going to happen to keep their interest? And, if it's just a quiet day, what is my goal is to try to be engaging, to make someone smile in 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it may be, or to try to get out that bigger story if there's a storm coming or if we think there's going to be severe weather. But where do you think, I don't know if you can weigh on this or not, but what do you see with radio though? Because I don't think that people are jumping on, to listen to me do severe weather coverage or anything like that. In fact, I'm really not doing much severe weather coverage these days. I will do some winter weather coverage in Kansas City, which is hard, but it's they do the tops and bottoms and we go through that. Or I will do some hurricane coverage down in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. But other than that, we've had to trim quite a bit because the radio enterprise has completely changed. I don't know what it looks like for me stepping forward, and how do I have 60 plus markets that I cover. I can only do so much. I don't know who said it earlier. Oh, you said it actually. You don't know what happens in Houston. I have no idea what's happening in Central Ohio if I didn't do the forecast here. I'm glad I do because then I at least know the forecast. Because other than that, I know everything from Portland to Panama City. But how do you keep it fresh on radio? How do we keep, for what I do in terms of a network, how do I keep it fresh? How do I, even if I don't do severe weather coverage, keep people safe? In that 30 seconds, how do I keep people safe if I'm not doing an actual warning, but I'm trying to give them the heads up, hey, this is an alert day from a radio perspective?
I don't think the coaching there is much different for radio versus TV. And I think that, the question I ask is, what do the viewers or your listeners want to know and need to know right now? And it's not a number. They're not going to they don't want to know a number unless it's, a day it's going to be 100 degrees or 32. They want to know the general description of the weather. I call it the essential message. What is your essential message? And the time to deliver that is right off the top, because it's called primacy. There's communication science that says people will remember the first thing you said and the last thing you said. So say it right off the top. And it might simply be, Jen, that today, we got some showers today. We got some, it's going to be one of those days where you just got to slow down a little bit and then you get into the data. It could be literally one quick sentence that summarizes what people need to know about the day. And to me, that conversational moment is much stronger than you rattling off a whole bunch of, 20% chance of rain or whatever that, or for my TV folks, it's the same thing. Give me a summary of what I need to know. How would you describe today? What's your essential message that you want to deliver? Deliver that at the top, then give me all the supporting data that goes along with that, and then you summarize it again at the end. Which is why I really value crosstalk with my clients. I'm like, keep the crosstalk in. It's conversational. It gives your meteorologist an opportunity to deliver the essential message and then get into the data. But without crosstalk, I see this all the time. They run the animated open. Here's Fox 4 News with James Spann, and James comes in and he starts into the data. I'm like, no, what's the message you want to deliver here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the same for you in radio. Yeah, you might only have 20, 30 seconds, but it's that opening statement is an opportunity for you to plant the seed, the stake in the ground. Today's a hot day, a cold day, and it could be that simple.
Yeah. And it's hard because it's recorded and, it plays, twice an hour or once, whatever. And, we're trying to just keep it fresh and what have you. And we were talking about tone earlier. I've been told in the past that I take on a mom tone when we're doing severe weather, which is a good thing because I'm pretty much telling you, go to your shelter, don't get out. I'm telling you, just it's the tone you take. But I did get some feedback a couple of weeks ago because I do Poplar Bluff and they were under severe weather and they had an EF3 that went through and we didn't, we don't do coverage for them, but I was able to be urgent enough to really heighten it. It's so difficult. And radio, I love radio. I will always love radio. It's such an important medium that I think will always be with us in some form, but it's just like television where people are not getting in their car and turning on the radio. They're listening to podcasts and they're listening to Spotify or Sirius XM or whatever it may be, and they're not necessarily listening to their local radio station. It is my hope, though, that they do listen to, when things are starting to get a little bit more active, that maybe they're listening to their local station. And I think getting the DJs and what have you a little bit more on board is a good thing. Radio has always struggled digitally. They have wanted us to do more digital work. But again, I can only be in one place at one time. It's just not, it's a totally different entity for me as a network, radio broadcaster. It's just an interesting world with radio. And I've seen it change so much in the 28 years. I miss morning drive where you could banter back and forth and, be part of the team and all that kind of stuff. And we just don't do that anymore. And it's sad to me.
I think radio is a very intimate community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know why. I mean, TV can be one-on-one too, but there's something about radio that feels very much like you are talking to me, which is why I think that conversational tone, be it a mom voice or not, is important,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
And each week we're joined by Bruce Jones. We usually introduce him after the recorded segments, and we'll come back and talk about Midland Weather Radios in a minute. And the importance of the Weather Radio Network. But Bruce, you had some important comments, and I want you to get to say those before we go to the recorded segments.
Yeah. I started out my career in radio, and, there was a radio writer and a consultant named Dan O'Day who had a series of books out on the art of personality radio. And one of the books was called Sharing, the Art of Personality Radio. And his philosophy, and I think it's very true, is if you're going to create a relationship between you and your listener, you need to share things that are important to them, not important to you. What's important to them? The potholes that they have to navigate every day on drive to work is important to them. Their kids are coming home from school today early because of this or that. You have to think about your listener all the time. What are they living? What are they doing? What do they want out of this forecast today? How is this going to impact them? And so my overall philosophy in radio is you have to give the audience what the audience wants. You can't give them what you want. I can't, it's worthless for me to talk about helicity and storm relative, this and the listener doesn't care about that. It's like, okay, this storm might rotate and produce some tornadoes or something. They can understand that. They can relate to that. So we always have to, train our DJs and our air personalities to think of the listener and give the listener what they want. Play the music that they want, give them a forecast in a way that they can easily digest it, and give everything. Share your information with the listener in a way that they will be interested in, because if it hits that inner chord with them, they'll remember you, and they'll almost think that you're psychic. Like, how did he know that I've been trying to get my taxes done by tomorrow? How did he know that it's been so dry and my lawn has turned brown now? How did he know these things? And the way you know is you constantly think about your listener. What are they doing? What are they experiencing? What are they going through right now? And then if you share that information back with them over the air, uh, they love it. They absolutely love it.
Bruce, Troy here, and I know you've got your promotional message, which will come up in a couple of minutes, but I have always wanted to talk a little more about weather radio in vehicles. You know this, Bruce, because the bane of your existence, and before you, the other Bruce,
Bruce Thomas,
the old HH54, which I have sitting installed on the right there in the front of the vehicle. I have it plugged in. I bugged you all about getting a power source for it and everything else. And it's just, I think that's so important. I would like to see more of that. And I know that's something off in the future that we could think about, but I'd love to see it installed in vehicles. But anyway, I'm one of the few people, I guess, that has weather radio in my vehicle.
Yeah, it was sad. We had some manufacturers. Cadillac had a weather radio button in some of their Cadillacs, but as far as I know, and then some of the trucks, well, truckers have a CB radio, and most of the CBs have weather band on it.
Well, but, the nice thing about the H854, which I understand is discontinued, but it had the search feature.
Yes.
So I could drive to Dallas and it would automatically find the strongest signals I drove along. And there would be many days when I did that or have done that when I would get a warning from Austin, then up the highway, get one from Waco at some point from the weather radio there, and then finally get one of the transmitters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of having NOAA weather radio in the automobiles. And I just can't for the life of me understand why Detroit never latched onto that, why they didn't see that as a selling feature, because we have the most violent weather on the planet. And we constantly are driving our cars through it and in it. And why Detroit didn't make that step, I don't know, because it wouldn't cost very much to put that little chip into a radio in a car.
And a number of people have died in cars from tornadoes that didn't hear the warning, and that would have saved their life. John Gordon, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure this is right. Ken Graham talked to somebody in GM when he was the Southern Region Public Program Manager years ago. Ken, if you're listening, see if this is true. And you were told that it was, I don't remember, some small number, Bruce, to put it in, $6.88 or something obscure.
Yeah.
And they said that's just too much money.
Please.
I think that's a true story. It was
on a
not
$45,000 car.
Yeah, please.
Whatever the number was, it was not a big number.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we got to take a break. We're going to hear from Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We're going to hear from Jen this week in tornado history. We're going to come back and do an email segment. We will do picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Easter will be observed this Sunday, April 20th, by Protestant and Catholic churches worldwide. It seems pretty late, especially thinking back to last year when it was observed back on March 31st. So why all this movement? Easter is a movable feast, which is observed on the Sunday following the Paschal Moon, or the first full moon after March 21st. All that year-to-year movement is because the definition is based on measuring two very different things, phases of the moon and the solar year. These two things are very much not in alignment. This causes that date of Easter to be as early as March 22nd, which is pretty rare, last happening in 1818 and not again until 2285, or as late as April 25th, which is slightly less rare but still hasn't happened since 1943, and not again until 2038. But in the big picture, that is the 1,000 years beginning with the first Easter observed under the new Gregorian calendar in 1583. April 20th is not that uncommon. So why is March 21st in the formula? That's an approximation of the vernal equinox. Interestingly, the equinox actually falls on the 20th, about 3 times more often. But these decisions were made hundreds of years before we spotted the 11-minute error in the length of the Julian calendar year, as it was being replaced by the Gregorian calendar. But there's also another Easter, celebrated by Orthodox churches, and it's shifted by a few weeks. Orthodox Easter can fall anywhere between April 1st and May 12th. This year, they both fall on April 20th. That happens about every 3 to 4 years. Elsewhere in the sky, a pair of coronal mass ejections are on their way to Earth, prompting NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center to issue a geomagnetic storm watch for April 16th. If the storms perform as anticipated and G2 conditions materialize, aurora may be visible over northern and upper Midwestern states from New York to Idaho. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, April the 14th, 2012. Per the Storm Prediction Center, 83 tornadoes occurred on this day, and just over half of them, 42, were in the state of Kansas. The strongest tornado for the day was one of the 42. It was an EF4 that traveled through parts of Rice, Ellsworth, McPherson, and Saline counties. The total path length was just over 50 miles, and the maximum width was 400 yards. There were no injuries or fatalities reported. The EF4 damage was found near Canopolis Lake in Ellsworth County. The National Weather Service in Wichita denoted the following damage in the county. The tornado scoured and dug out a section of gravel road about 4 to 5 inches deep. A home was swept off its foundation and destroyed, with a small staircase remaining in the center. Debris from the home was tossed into an adjacent tree line to the northeast. Numerous trees around the house were snapped and shredded, and some of those trees were also debarked from the intense wind speeds. A car was flipped and tossed upside down.
Well, just maybe we have an email or two to read this week.
Yes, I do have some email. First of all, that event from 2012 was one of the first ones I did at the Storm Report because we had a station in Salina, and I remember tracking all that in. So yes, and it is McPherson. Thank you so much for James A. and Bruce for complimenting me on that one. That is one of the hardest things about radio is trying to figure out how do you say what wherever you are because it all is different. But let's get to a few emails. Thank you, everybody who has sent in some emails. I'm still playing a little bit of catch up, and I'm holding on to a few emails for some folks as well. Kim has one that hopefully we'll get to next week. But I do want to ask a quick question. Aaron Tanner wrote in and wanted to ask about there was a Michigan ice storm a couple of weeks ago. I did not follow it because I was on traveling. Does anybody know any details about that on Mackinac Island, about all the ice up that way? And I guess it was huge. I don't know much about it and really wasn't covered by the national media. So I can do some digging for him, but I just thought I'd throw it out to see if anybody had anything.
I think they had some huge power outages from this thing. This was a nasty, nasty ice storm from what I can tell. And you're right, it didn't get much publicity, but I got a note from a wife of a lineman that's still up there today working this thing. So apparently it was a huge mess.
Yeah, I'll do a little digging for him on that one because that's pretty bad. This email came in from Jeremy. I'm going to try to get to the crux of the question here. First, he congratulated us on our 1,000 plus episodes. Thank you so much. I'm a layperson and casual weather enthusiast, but I truly enjoy the podcast. Watch or listen as often as possible. I'm a recording engineer who owns a studio in Burns, Tennessee, about 30 minutes west of Nashville. And in my other life, I work for a certain 3-letter delivery service. So his question comes up with the delivery service here. In some of our delivery areas, there's no cell service. Our trucks do not have radios, and when talking to local residents, weather radio coverage is a bit spotty. Man, it'd be great if they had a weather radio in their car. Wouldn't it be great? I don't know. So he goes, what tips can I give my coworkers who are en route during these events. In town, it's easy to stream local coverage and find businesses to pop into, ride out the worst of it. But what about those places where there may or may not be sirens, which are absolutely not ideal, but there's the when you're outside, there's no cell coverage, there aren't any businesses nearby. Would WEA notifications push through? So just what's some advice? It's a great thing if you're traveling and you're on the road and you have spotty cell service. Thoughts on that?
I say this is a Bruce Jones question.
Hey, how about good old AM radio?
Exactly.
Yep. Good old AM radio goes a long distance. And hopefully you get a radio station where they still take pride in doing wall-to-wall severe weather.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I think a lot of them will still play the EAS alerts, I think.
Yeah.
So you hopefully would at least get the warning. Now, whether or not they follow up on it or not is the big question. But no, AM radio for sure. I don't know about the WEAs. Yeah, James A., you think that's probably the best bet, is making sure that WEA alerts and make sure they're on for getting the notifications where you are. You have to make sure that setting is set on your phone.
And a lot of people turn those things off because they don't like Amber Alerts.
Yep.
Which makes no sense. If a child is missing, don't you want to help? But be sure that the emergency alerts are all turned on. They should be on every phone.
So I've been holding on to an email since March 14th because Bill said he was going to answer this. And it had to do with barometric pressure and pain. Do you remember this, Bill? You said you're going to answer this. Oh, you're muted. He's not going to answer it.
I don't think I said I was going to answer it, Jen.
I have the answer to this one when we do this. You said I have the answer to this one when we do this email.
Oh, I think it was about the record low pressure. That was the question. I did have that, but that was so long ago now, I forgot.
Okay. This is from Catherine, and it's essentially about barometric pressure and pain. And so she was asked, because she lives in Texas, right? And so she was curious. I don't want to say where she lives. She lives in Texas at an elevation of 3,373 feet. What do you think would be the lowest the pressure could fall in our area? And that she was just interested in the whole relationship. And I think we've talked about it on the show before, between the pressure and pain, which is a real thing.
Well, and there's
Troy's our Texas correspondent.
The sea level pressure, which is relative, and her station pressure, which is much lower at 3,000 feet.
Well, I would also say that no doubt that probably if she's in the coastal plains, her lowest pressure is going to come with a landfalling tropical cyclone.
She's up north. She's panhandle-ish.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Yes. So this is what she wrote.
Is that elevation? She said
that she was at 3,373.
Oh, 3,000. Okay. My apologies.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And so this is what she wrote. She was talking about her knees, and that her grandmother often blamed her rheumatism on the weather. And, my knee hurts. And, as you get older, you have pain. And I think there is something to do with pressure.
Yeah, that's from what I hear, and it's still argued to some degree by scientists to some degree, but it normally is going to be felt the most when pressure is falling, I believe, based on what I hear. If it's rising, you actually feel less discomfort, perhaps. And I'm not going to ask to see in everyone's book of all the 8 people in the Brady Bunch here tonight, but who doesn't have a grandmother's phone number you can call? I've had grandmothers call me up and say, my knees are killing me. It's going to rain. Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what were you going to say, Bill? Oh, you were going
to
give
I had that. I saved that, and I don't know where I saved it because I had that exact information.
Well, luckily, because I'm so organized, I had it tagged, and you said 981.7 millibars.
Well, if you already knew the answer, that was
because I wanted you to speak.
You should have brought to me.
I don't talk all the time. You talk. Speaking of talking, I need John Gordon to get in here and promote what you want in email right now.
I want our international people. Tim, get your Nigerians. We want people to write WeatherBrains from out of the country. If you do, I will respond to you personally. Canada, Bermuda, Nigeria, Hungary, England, from the UK Weather Office. You need to write James Spann and tell him that you listen to WeatherBrains.
We've
Well,
had
but
Australia.
Tell him
We've
who
got
you are at the end. Just make sure you
yeah,
put
please.
your
Yeah.
name and email address.
Email
We-
address and
we-
name, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to set up a Gmail account or something to fix this whole problem here. But no, we've had, John, people from Australia,
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of countries in Europe, most continents. We've had people that have sent in notes before. So please make John happy. If you are an international
Tarmo,
listener,
he's out there.
yes,
From Estonia.
it will make him happy.
That's
You're
right.
at the South Pole taking weather ops. Send Spann a note.
Yeah,
Say, I listened to
send.
WeatherBrains.
Come on.
Yes, email at weatherbrains.com for now until we decide to switch it. And when you do, please put your full name and your email address in the body of the email. And I'm telling you, folks, we have to do it because it happened tonight.
Yeah,
Somebody
we
wrote, Troy's
forget.
like, who is this? It was hilarious.
Yeah,
I
Rick
cracked up laughing.
Smith. Rick Smith sent a note, said he couldn't make it tonight, and he didn't include his name or email address, so we had no idea who it was. So yeah,
We didn't know. So Troy's like, "Who is this?" It was
Yeah.
great. So yeah, please do that. We'll try to get this fixed at some point, but whatever. Anyway,
It apparently cannot be fixed. Not the way we do it now. We would have to do something different, like James is talking about, using a
yeah. What
Gmail or something
what we're gonna do. Once we get this summer, we're gonna have some extra people in here. We're gonna get a Gmail address, and it's just everybody's gonna be happy. It'll forward to all of us, and we'll make that happen. So there you go.
We can make that happen, that's for sure. We just can't do it. We can't use the old famous email at weatherbrains.com. But
Come on,
we'll
something
we'll
cool.
work on that. But a couple times you've heard the familiar voice from the world of weather safety, Bruce Jones, a national spokesperson for Midland Radio. He spent decades advocating for NOAA Weather Radio as the most reliable tool for receiving life-saving warnings, especially when other systems fail. And Bruce, tonight you joined kind of at the tail end, but in the discussion about effective communication and trust and the evolving role of broadcast meteorologists, you've got an important message for us about that device that wakes us up at 2 o'clock in the morning when a tornado warning is issued. So take it, because it's that time of year. It's when we need to be the ambassadors of this important life-saving service.
Oh, absolutely. And today's the 14th of April, 2025. I think so far this year, our tornado total, according to SPC, is like 182% of normal. I think we're that far ahead of normal for our tornado count for 2025. And it's only the middle of April. So it's been a very active season. And unfortunately, that kind of activity gets people's attention because we all talk and preach about being prepared and preparedness, but it's easy to put that off and procrastinate and say, well, mañana, I'll get prepared some other time. But when the severe weather raises its ugly head, then I think the message becomes that much more important, and people finally get it. So the basic message is this: if you live in the United States of America, we have the ugliest weather on the planet, and you need to have multiple redundant ways to get your warnings. And there are several ways to do that. The outdoor sirens are good when you're outdoors. Your cell phone is with you all the time. But you also have NOAA Weather Radio, the official voice of the National Weather Service. And this is a radio broadcast that comes direct from the National Weather Service office. I was recently at the North Carolina Emergency Management Conference talking with the emergency managers from counties that were decimated by Hurricane Helene. And they told me, and I quote, radio was the only thing that worked. And the National Weather Service office in Greenville, Spartanburg, through NOAA Weather Radio, was able to get out numerous life-saving warnings in that area. And NOAA Weather Radio was one of the few media that was still on the air. So it's important to have multiple ways to get these warnings. And one of the most reliable and official ways to get it is this simple device called a NOAA Weather Radio. And I hope if you're a fan of WeatherBrains that you'll kind of spread this word and help us kind of spread the gospel about NOAA Weather Radio. It is America's official federal warning system. The federal government has built out this network of more than 1,000 transmitters nationwide and in all 5 U.S. territories. And the whole system was designed to act as an indoor tornado alert. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're streaming video on YouTube, Netflix, whether you're playing video games, watching DVDs, whatever, that NOAA weather radio is going to alert you when your TV or your cell phone or your outdoor siren might not. So these are important life-saving devices, and they truly belong in every single home in America. If you go to midlandusa.com, we have a very special offer for you. It's a 25% off offer on all weather products and accessories. Limit 5 per customer, please. Use the promo code SPAN25. That's SPANN 25. SPANN 25 is the promo code, SPAN25. And you use that promo code at midlandusa.com. So go to the website, use the promo code, and make sure you and your family are protected. Have multiple redundant ways to get these life-saving alerts that come directly from the National Weather Service via NOAA Weather Radio, America's official federal warning system.
Indeed, Bruce, thank you so much. It's critical. Every home, every business needs one, and you can help us if you have one by telling your friends, neighbors, family members to take advantage of this great offer. All right, so we're going to do picks of the week here, and let's see, is Tim still with us, or did he have to go?
He's still there.
I
He's
think
still
Tim.
there.
Okay, yeah. So Tim, we're gonna come to you at the very end to give you some time to think of a good pick of the week, even though you probably have one right off the top of your head. But this is where we'll share something that's weather related. This can be a website, it can be hardware, software, weather instruments, anything remotely related to weather. So let's get to James Adelot because he's got some television to do here in a few minutes. James, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week, because we all need a little levity from time to time, is my Facebook post from yesterday when Tulsa had its first 90-degree temperature of the year so far. And I posted an animated GIF of a Star Trek, a ship blowing up in front of the original Star Trek bridge, and everybody flinches from the bright light and said, "It's not the sun, it's me wearing shorts for the first time this year."
Woo! Yes, I think we can all relate to that problem. Excellent. And again, we'll put all the picks on weatherbrains.com. All right, Jen, let's bring your pick of the weekend. Go.
All righty. Mine comes from actually one of our listeners, Brian Fowler. Thank you for sending this in. And it's a story from the Tampa Bay Times called Carried by Hurricane Waves. These tortoises were swept to Florida's Fort DeSoto. And it's a really neat story about gopher tortoises that apparently got caught up in the waves of the storm and traveled 2 miles from this remote island. And it's very odd for a few reasons. First of all, they're land-dwelling reptiles. They live in dry dunes or forests. There have been only at this particular park only 8 known tortoises, and the gopher tortoises don't swim. So they were carried, and so far they found at least 80 tortoises along the island, and they're all having their little, they burrow in. Sadly, there have been some that did not make it. But some of them have been building their little burrowed areas really high. And I'm like, that's so smart.
Yep.
It's just neat that they made it, and they were part of this other, remote island, and they were tagged. And so they knew where they came from. And so it's a really neat article from the Tampa Bay Times. So thanks, Brian, for sending that in.
Outstanding. Okay, John Gordon, give us your pick of the week.
Okay, so we talked about Delta 91 earlier. I'll just say this. We're coming up on the 40th anniversary. Let's never forget the 136 people who were killed that day and 1 person on the ground. My pick of the week, I'll tell you, FIM, flood inundation mapping, is going to change everyone on this podcast call. 30% of the Weather Service has done it. So I put this in the chat. So if you go to water.noaa.gov, the Ohio Valley is fortunate enough to have FIM. This shows you water on a map. Tim, this is going to be cool. Tim, for you, I just think this is the best thing that has ever happened in hydrology, ever. Instead of the boring text, the river is going to go to 36.2 feet, blah, blah, blah. You're actually going to be able to see where the water is going to be inundated. It's really phenomenal. And a second pick, real quick, is the 7 offices got together at the Weather Service and put together a tornado flood map from April 1st through 6th from the central region and southern region. Really cool. All the tornado tracks, all the flooding, the rainfall, one stop all. It's all in the chat. Thank you, James.
Outstanding. And again, all these picks will be up on weatherbrains.com. Troy Kimmel, go. What's your pick?
I like this one. I know that it'll mean something for James and Tulsa and everything else, but airport weather station chief punished for drunk observations at Okinawa's airport. It ends up that the guy was intoxicated, but the weather observations were still good. They just caught him. The weather observations were actually good. This comes from the newspaper, the National Daily in Japan. It just came out. I saw a pilots group that had this online, and I don't know what sky clear. I guess you're drunk. Nah, whatever.
Weather observer on the sauce.
Everclear.
Yeah, Everclear.
Outstanding.
There you go.
Everclear. Go title. Bruce Jones, give us your pick of the week. Go.
Well, it's April 14th, 2025, and this is the 113th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. Now, the best book ever written about the Titanic, for those of you who are interested, was Walter Lord's book, which came out, I think, in the 50s or 60s, A Night to Remember. And it's just a moment-by-moment chronology of how that thing, a chronicle of how that thing played out. So Walter Lord is the guy who wrote A Night to Remember, which is a great book. AccuWeather on their website actually has some weather maps from the day the Titanic sank. And being under a huge dome of high pressure apparently had something to do with causing the Titanic to hit that iceberg. And you can go on the AccuWeather website and read about the weather maps from the night the Titanic hit the iceberg 113 years ago today.
How about that? Great pick. Okay, Tim, we have stalled long enough. It's your turn. Give us a great pick.
Well, I have to pick hellerweather.com.
Yes. I was hoping you would do that.
If you go to hellerweather.com/coaching, at the top of the page there it says news and insights, and I write a lot about strategy. I write a lot about what we do in this business, why we do it. If you sense any kind of frustration in some of the writing, it's because I'm frustrated, and I want us to. I think we have a valuable job. I think we have an important job. I'm concerned that it's no longer an essential job because of apps and social media meteorologists, and I do think that we have to work smarter and we have to work harder. But you can also contact me through that website, and please do. I love conversing about all of this. And let me just end by saying, we've talked a lot about, some of the issues and problems and challenges we are facing in this business, but all of this is an opportunity too, for people that really want to get into it and love what they do and are passionate about what they do. I think that there is a place for broadcast meteorologists, multimedia meteorologists in the future, but it's not going to happen just because we show up in front of the camera every night. We have to work harder at attracting the viewers and being there when they need us, not just in severe weather, but anytime there's disruptive weather happening in their community.
I want to echo that. I think this is a great time for college graduates to get into this. It will never be the same. It will never be what we did in the 80s and the 90s. But I think something marvelous is going to come out of this. Marvelous. And it will be better than what we've grown up with here. So, great words, Tim. And thank you for your insight, and thanks for what you do for all of us. Your wisdom is incredible. All right, Bill Murray, go.
Yeah, James, my pick of the week is Brandon Skowniak's Tornado Radar Museum. I don't think that we've ever had that as a pick of the week, but if you're into severe weather history, his website is a must visit. He's a senior at Millersville University studying emergency management, and he's got this really cool archive known as the Radar Museum. It's a curated collection of 5,000 radar captures.
Wow.
Tornadoes, derechos, tropical cyclones, other high impact weather events over the last 31 years.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. And he's always a great contributor to the weather history story every day. Over there on that great Twitter account. If you follow weather_history, like John Gordon turned me on to, and I love now. You'll see Brandon's information following right along on all that. And I'll have to get him on the show because it's really some cool work he's doing. Next week, we'll have Stephen Strader. We're going to talk hot air ballooning. We're going to send Span up in a hot air balloon, if you remember, on show 1000. Yeah. And the fella who's going to carry him up in the balloon is going to come and talk about the importance of weather to hot air balloonists. Obviously, it's an important thing, but he's got some fascinating information about that. Carly Anna will circle back with us on the 5th to talk about their storm chasing coaching site and its launch. And Max Velocity. I was watching Max today. He was covering the storms in West Virginia. He's going to join us on June the 9th. Looking forward to talking to him. And then our friend Rod Hill will circle back on August 4th. And we'll get to talking a little bit more about Pacific Northwest weather. Troy Kimmel, I don't remember how we got hijacked on that show with Rod, but I don't think we got into all the fun stuff we wanted to. So we're going to circle back and talk some more weather nerdy stuff from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, sounds good. I on the 9th of June, actually I'm going to be in Guam. At least I'm planning on it. So I'll probably try to get the brothers from the WFO.
Yeah.
Get them.
Guys are great.
Got to do that. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's just some of the guests that are coming up, James Bean.
All right, great. And my pick, it's Victor Gensini, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. You're seeing a lot of his products circulating now on social media, these long-range supercell composite parameter products, those SCP products. And I've got the link to his site that has all this data there, and it's very interesting. And Victor up at NIU does some great work. But we got to go. If you are new here, WeatherBrains is typically on the air every Monday night at 8 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. But my time's here. We've only been doing this for 19 years.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with us,
the times have changed a few times, James.
They have. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address for now, it is email@weatherbrains.com. We know that most people listen. Whatever, we got to go. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great week and God bless.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim.
Great show, Tim. Thank you, Tim.
Bye, Tim.
That was outstanding.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.